Hi everyone, thanks for watching. I'm Simon from HomeSite. Today we're going to be doing a basic setup of Home Assistant. Now I'm going to assume you've already done the installation, and we're going to be doing a basic setup including a Google Drive backup, a file editor, Node-RED and a Samba share. There'll be lots of tips and tricks all the way through, as well as performing some updates at the end. So stay tuned and let's go! First things first, you're going to need to open your web browser. Next, you're going to need to find out the IP address of your Home Assistant. Now, if you're not sure what that is already, you might need to look it in your router to look in the DHCP table to find the address for your Raspberry Pi or your device, your Home Assistant's IP address. Otherwise, you can use a monitor, a mouse and keyboard, plug it in, and run the network info command once you're into the shell. There's plenty of other videos helping you on that initial installation. I'm going to assume that you already know what it is. On mine, it's 192.168.1.142. So, initial setup, pretty straightforward. Simon, I'm going to use the same name as well as the username. I'm going to put in a password and create an account. Couldn't be much simpler than that, could it? Okay, name of your location. It thinks I'm in Amsterdam. I'm actually not. I'm over here. I'm going to put my elevation, which I'm about 100 meters above sea level. I'm going to go with metric and next. Now then, this is the bit where Home Assistant is going to rush off into your network and try and find as many things as it can. If it can find them, it's going to pop them in here. Pretty cool. I'm just going to hit finish for now. We'll come back to that bit. Bit of a control freak, like to do things manually. There we go. We've now got our first Home Assistant instance set up. Let's walk you through a few things. I'm going to start here on the overview. This is, by default, is your dashboard. This is going to show you all of your devices. It gets a little messy when you've got lots of stuff on there, so you can fully customize it as well with these three little dots and edit dashboard. I'll warn you though, as soon as you hit take control, it won't automatically add them, but it's really easy to do it anyway, so don't worry about it. I'm going to hit never mind for now. Next thing's a map. That's where I live, apparently. The logbook here on the left, this is going to be able to tell you all of the stuff that's happened. You can choose date and time, which is always pretty good as well. History, these are going to be all the devices, all of the things on your system, and their status and when they change. Again, you can change date and time, pretty cool. Here we can see I'm a person, Simon. We know the sun is below the horizon, because it's quite late here, and the sun's long set, and it's a bit rainy. I live in the UK. Media browser, a bit more to set up with that yet. Down here you've got developer tools. This is quite handy. This list here tells you all of the stuff again that you've got in your system. And then we can select an entity here, look at the sun. We can change the status there as well, but I'm not going to do that. Coming into our supervisor, now this bit's where it gets really cool. This will automatically tell you when there's an update, so we can hit the update version. So here we're currently running 0.115.3, and we're going to go to number 6. Now if you're ever not sure about it, click on the release notes. If you scroll right to the bottom of here, this tells us what the latest fix is. And this will tell you all the cool features that have happened in the major version. This add-on store. Now here, this is where we want to be. There's going to be certain things that we want to add into the system. First of all, we're going to add a Samba share. Now this basically means that you can browse to your Home Assistant and look at the files. You can change them. And there's something called a configuration.yaml file. It's basically a load of text. It tells your Home Assistant what devices and how to use them. Now that can be really handy to be able to get to that from another machine. So we're going to install this. Now as a little note, when we're installing this, you'll see there's documentation. This will tell you how to configure the thing. It'll tell you down here what's optional and what's required. See all of these bits here? These are all required entities. So in a minute, once it's configured, once it's installed, we'll need to configure it. Now I've just realised when I was sat over there I was in the way, so I've moved. Now then, we've got our Samba installed. What do we do next? Well, we can hit start. What's the worst that can happen? Let's check that configuration. Missing required option password. So it's even told us what we're missing. Now then, if we have a look in here, we can see we've got work group. We'll leave that the same. Username, I'm going to change that to Simon. Password, I'm going to put password, but you can put whatever you like. We can see we're allowing hosts. Now, our IP address is 192.168.1.142. So we're looking at this first bit. We can see that we're not using that and we're not using that. So I'm going to delete them. So if you've got 192.168.anything else, you're fine, you can leave that in. I'm going to get rid of that one as well. This is all fine. Okay, let's hit save. And hopefully we've got a bit more luck this time when we hit start. Looks good. So the next thing you probably want to do is test it. So if you open up File Explorer, put in //192.168.1.142 or whatever the IP address of your Home Assistant is, and press enter. Should prompt you for a username and password. Now remember, I entered Simon and password. And we're in. That's what we'd expect. So we can get into config. There's our configuration file. There's our database file. There's our log file. Log files are handy. If for whatever reason something hasn't started up properly, it'll tell you in here. Good. Samba's working. Now, if you're watching this video after completing my how to install Home Assistant on Ubuntu within KVM, then you'll need to run a few more commands as well. You open in terminal. You remember those IP tables commands? You're going to need a few more ports. You're going to need 445, which is this one. You're going to need 139, which is this one. And don't forget your sudo iptables-save so that Ubuntu doesn't forget it for next time. Done. Samba will work now. As always, those commands are in the description below. So the next thing we're going to install, if we go back here, back to the add-on store, file editor, and hit install. Done. Now I'm going to tick show in sidebar on this one because I want it to appear over here on the left hand side. And I'm going to hit start. No configuration needed on that one. It's done it for us, look. So, next thing to install. Back to the add-on store. Node-RED. It's going to take a little while to install this one. So, while you're doing that, why not subscribe to my page? Make sure you don't miss out on any videos. So, Node-RED is now installed. You've subscribed to my page. All is good in the world. Now we just need to get this started. Now we can't click start straight away. There's a bit of configuration we need to do first. So I'm going to jump straight into configuration. Start off with credential secret. Now this is a way that Node-RED encrypts all of your passwords, essentially. So I am going to go to passwordsgenerator.net. I'm going to generate a password and put that into there. This isn't something you're going to have to enter. Some nice obscure password would be great. I'm going to put in username Simon and password. That's password. Just as an example here, I'm going to leave dark mode as false. SSL, we're going to want to disable that for now. So we're going to turn that to false, and the same here. Now SSL is like a bit when you go onto your online banking and use HTTPS, you get that S bit means it's encrypting the traffic, but you need something called a certificate first, and we won't have that set up just yet. So we'll set those to false for now. Now once that's done, we'll save that. We can leave the network port, everything else the same. I'm going to come back to info and I'm going to hit start. Now that that's started, I'm just going to tick show in sidebar as well, and it's going to put it over here on the left hand side. Done. Cool. So I noticed after a minute that Node-RED wasn't running again. See, this has gone back, giving you the start option again. Now I went into the log and you can see some red text here. Now different add-ons will give you different level of logging. This one's pretty good. This one in fact tells you exactly why it hasn't started and why it stopped. So password is in the I have been owned database this many times, so they're not going to let you use that password. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my configuration. I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to make that my password in both instances. You're going to want to write that down, probably make that one a little bit more memorable because you may have to enter that one. Save, and then start again. And this time we can be pretty certain that's not going to be in the I've been owned database, so we should be good. So we can check the log, and if we hit the refresh, cool, so we've started this time. It's good. The next one we're going to load is not quite the same. It's not in this add-on store. But what we're going to do is we're going to click these three little dots up here in the top right hand corner. We're going to go to repositories. And I'm going to paste in this bit here. And I'll put this in the description. And what this is doing is adding another place for Home Assistant to go off and look to find software that it can install. So this guy, Stephen Beechin, has made this Google Drive backup repository. So if you use Google Drive, I'll definitely recommend this. So now it's added this one down here. We can click on it and we can install. Now what this does, it allows you to generate snapshots, so backups of your Home Assistant, automatically load them into your Google Drive. If you're thinking that sounds great, but why do I want to back it up? Well, when you're learning, you might break the configuration, your hard drive might go in your laptop, your SD card might go in your Raspberry Pi if you're using a Pi. It's definitely worth doing right now. So that's installed, so we can hit start. No configuration on this one, dead simple. In fact, there is configuration, but it's through a graphical user interface. Okay, so that's started. Well, I'm going to show this in the sidebar as well. Now I've got this little snapshots, so I can click on that. I get a bad gateway. There you go. Just needed a second to load. Okay, so dead simple. Authenticate with Google Drive. Enter your username. If you don't have one, you could just sign up for normal Google Drive. It's going to ask you, you're about to give permission to this habackup.io to view and manage your Google Drive files and folders. Gotta trust someone, right? Okay, so we're going to copy this authorization string, come back to our supervisor, and paste our string in there. And save. Cool. Now, if you go into settings, you can choose how many snapshots you store in Home Assistant, how many snapshots you store in Google Drive, the time of the day, the days between snapshots, and even if you could even password the snapshots themselves if you want as well. You can change the name, you can do all sorts of customization. But I think that's fine. You can have a play with it if you like. I'm also going to do a snapshot now. I'm going to call it installed. And this will always give me a good one to get back to if I ever need to. So this is telling you, I've never logged into Google Drive. Now I don't use Google Drive on that email account. And I probably wouldn't, just in case. You wouldn't want to go storing sensitive data in there. There you go, so this now tells you that's been backed up. Done. Okay, so we've finished installing some of the crucial add-ons, or what I would consider to be the crucial add-ons. We haven't actually opened up either File Editor or Node-RED yet, so I'm just going to jump into File Editor. Now, I'm really only going to touch on this really briefly, because I'm going to do a separate video on it. Now, if we click on this little Browse File System, we can click on configuration.yaml. Now this is your configuration file. Now it looks a bit scary to start with, and this is how you can add a lot of your devices. Sure, some of the things can add automatically through integrations, but sometimes you need to add things in directly in here. Now I've just copied in these things called some of the system monitoring things. Now these are going to basically add as sensors into the platform. Now one of the cool things about File Editor is that you get this little exclamation mark up here, and it'll check your file, and it'll tell you if there's something wrong. Now you can see I've added in this system monitoring stuff. In green with a hash in front means it's a comment. So I can put a hash here and write so we've got this exclamation point, so there's something wrong. Now what I haven't included is a bit that says sensor. Now this is like a header or a title for the items beneath that line, and so we could have multiple sensors in there. Now you can have, it's really important as well that you have this hyphen in the right thing. So next we could have platform, and then the name of the platform, MQTT is another good one, and then all of the entities underneath. Well, this is an entity, and all of the settings underneath. But I'm going to take that out. I'm going to leave that like that for now. We've got the green tick, which is good, and we're going to hit save. Now one other thing that you're probably going to want to do before this takes effect, you need to restart a bit of your system. So before we do that, I'm going to click on the profile down here. I'm going to put on advanced mode. Now this unlocks advanced features. It's not scary, don't worry about it. You will need it though. Now by default, now just before I turn that on, if you go into configuration, server controls, we've got this option to restart the server management. Now this will make your configuration.yaml changes take effect. However, if you get it wrong, it can stop it from booting up. Now I've put it in advanced mode. If we go into configuration again and server controls, you'll notice there's a bunch more stuff. And this button here, critically, is the check configuration button. Sounds like a good idea. We'll check our configuration before we do our restart. You sure you want to restart Home Assistant? Yeah. Now this will lose communications. It will probably pop up the little box down here. There you go. And it'll tell you when it's come back as well. So you don't need to come off the page. You can just sit and wait. While you're waiting, you can subscribe. There you go, start it back up. So now if we go into this developer tools, we should see these extra things we've just loaded in. These sensors, 15-minute CPU load, and all of these other bits. Processor use, should be a hard drive space there somewhere. Memory use percent. Oh, there you go, disk use percent. And if we go to our overview, like I said earlier on, it'll add all of these things automatically onto this dashboard. Pretty cool. So now I'm going to show you a really quick overview of Node-RED. Now we could spend hours and hours on Node-RED, and I've got some really cool automations that I could show you, but I'm going to do that in another video. So for now, I'm going to click this. Now Node-RED is a way of wiring up nodes to do different things, follow different logic flows. So now that that's loaded, I'm going to drag our first node on. So here are our node palettes all the way down the left hand side. And if you can't find it in there, you can always add more. Again, I'm going to show you that another time. The first thing I'm going to do is this event state. Now I'm going to pop open another tab and I'm going to go to my Home Assistant and developer tools. Now we're going to base our automation on the sun. So at the moment you can see the sun is above the horizon. When it goes below horizon, it just changes that to below horizon. So we're going to use this as our trigger. So I'm going to come into here. Our server is Home Assistant. I'm going to say sun set entity ID. If you start typing, it will auto populate. So I can click sun, which is our entity ID. As we've checked here, this is our entity ID here, sun. Now, I'm going to say, I'm going to copy this current state, because we know it's above the horizon at the moment. So if the state is above horizon, then we can make a choice. Actually, I'm going to just change that to sunrise. Makes a bit more sense. The next thing we can do is call a service. Now, I don't have any entities in this system yet, so this is just a really quick example. Now, if I did have a light, for example, we would have the light domain available. The service is going to be turned on, and we'll put the entity ID, it'll be light dot. Let's call it outside. I'm going to copy that and paste it here, because I'm going to do an off as well, turn off. Now, so if the sun is above the horizon, and that is true, we want to turn the light off. So really I should have put that down there and that up there. And if the sun is above the horizon, is false, so if you hover over the little node here, we want to turn the light on. We hit deploy, and this state here currently says disconnected, it says connecting, running. Cool. So now when the sun goes above the horizon, it's going to turn the light off. When the sun goes below the horizon, it's going to turn the light on. Dead simple. Now you can make some really, really complicated ones of these with all sorts of timers and triggers and checks and all sorts of stuff. It's really cool, but watch out for another video on that one. Right, the very last thing I'm going to show you is how to update your system. Now, there's a lot of developers working on this in the background all the time, and they produce some really cool stuff. Now you're going to want it. So if we go down to supervisor, if there's an update available, it'll show you like this. Now there's also updates for these add-ons. Now if there's an update available for those, it will show a little orange or red bar all the way across the top, and you can click on it and then hit update within there. But for the main home system and the operating system as well, you'll get different updates up here. Now, if you click on the release notes, you can see some of the really cool stuff that they've added. So for example, in this one, in this major version, they've added a media browser. They've added more ability to customize the sidebar, but I'll let you read that. For now, we're just going to hit update. You sure you want to update the system? Now, I always make sure that I've got a good backup before this happens, because you never know. Hit update. Sit and wait for a minute. One of the important things about these release notes is that whilst the developers are really cool and they develop a lot of stuff, sometimes they break stuff as well. Now, it's just what happens in software development. But the good thing is they'll tell you what they're breaking. So if you scroll right down to the bottom of those release notes, you'll find the breaking changes. If you look at those, it's worth checking to make sure that you're not using any of those components, and they normally fix it with something else. They normally give you another option, and they'll tell you instead of using this part in your configuration.yaml, you're going to have to use this part. So now that we've finished our update, we've got a really solid base for our Home Assistant installation. It's now time to start choosing some devices. You might want to add your Sonos system, you might want to add some Zigbee items, you might want to add all sorts of different things. They might have integrations directly. You might need to add them through configuration.yaml, but there's lots of information out there on how to add these things. So thank you for joining me, Simon, on HomeSite. Please like the video if you've liked it. Please subscribe to keep your eye out for new ones, and I'll see you next time.